The Lenovo Legion Pro 7i Gen 10 runs so hot that I had to completely change how I use a laptop, and honestly, it was worth it. When you lift the lid, there's actual heft to it, not the kind that makes you worry about hinges, but the kind that tells you everything inside is pressed tight and deliberate. The Eclipse black aluminum feels almost deceptive under your fingers, because the finish is textured in a way that initially reads like high-quality plastic, but then you notice how rigid the whole thing stays when you twist it, and you realize this is just metal treated differently. There's no flex in the base, no creaking near the corners. The hinge holds firm without wobbling, even when you adjust the angle mid-game. Fingerprints do show up quickly across the dark surface, especially near the keyboard deck where your palm rests. So, you'll be wiping it down more often than you would expect. The front edge has this understated LED light bar that glows when you power it on. And the rear vents look like something pulled from a sports car exhaust system. It's a heavy at 2.57 kilograms, but the weight is centered so it doesn't tip forward when you open it all the way. There's a thickness to it too, between 21.9 and 26.65 millimeter depending on where you measure, and you feel that density when you slide it into a bag. The first time I launched Cyberpunk 2077, I immediately noticed the laptop was pulling over 230 watts of combined power from the CPU and GPU, and the frame rates hit 128 FPS at 2560 to 1600 with extreme settings before I even touched the LSS. That's faster than most RTX 5080 laptops I've tested before, including the Razer Blade 16. The Intel Core Ultra 9 275 Ajax with its 24 cores doesn't hesitate when you throw in rendering tasks or heavy multitasking at it. Cinebench scores came in around 36,700 points in multi-core, which is genuinely competitive with AMD's flagship chips. The 16-inch OLED panel is sharp at 2560 to 1600, and the 240Hz refresh keeps even the fastest movement blur-free, especially with G-Sync enabled. Colors pop across 100% of the DCI-P3 game mode, making it excellent for photo editing alongside gaming. The one thing I kept noticing though is how the CPU temps would spike to 100 degrees Celsius in performance mode during sustained gaming. It's not a deal breaker, but I had to switch to balanced mode after the first week, which brought temps down to the mid-60s to low 70s while still maintaining over 120 FPS in most titles. Compared to the Asus ROG Zephyrus G16 with similar specs, this feels more responsive under load, but the Zephyrus runs noticeably cooler in the same scenarios. When you scroll through the product page, Lenovo really pushes the 400-watt power supply and the automated overclocking as headline features. They're not wrong, the performance boost is real and measurable in benchmarks, but what surprised me is how little attention they give to the thermal management side of things. They mention the large cooling solution and the triple fan vapor chamber setup, but they don't tell you that you'll probably want to run this thing elevated off your desk if you're gaming for more than 1 hour. The marketing talks a lot about the OLED display's HDR 1000 certification and 1000 nit peak brightness, which does match my experience when watching HDR content, but they quietly leave out the fact that the glossy finish turns into a black mirror the moment you're in a bright room with dark content on screen. I always find it interesting what brands emphasize and what they quietly leave out. After about a week, I started naturally reaching for this laptop whenever I knew I'd be sitting down for a few hours of work or gaming, rather than quick 20-minute sessions. The keyboard has deeper travel than most thin gaming laptops, and the full-size arrow keys make navigation feel less cramped compared to something like the HP Omen Max 16. I didn't expect to appreciate the 16:10 aspect ratio as much as I did, but the extra vertical space makes a difference when you're editing video timelines or reading long documents. The 32GB of DDR5 6400 RAM handled everything I threw at it without slowdowns, from running virtual machines to having 40 browser tabs open while gaming. What I didn't anticipate was how much the fan noise would vary depending on whether I kept the laptop flat on my desk or propped it up on a stand, raised. It stayed quieter and cooler, which changed how I set my workspace entirely. The battery life is not great, maybe 3 to 4 hours of mixed use, so this is definitely tethered to that massive 400-watt power brick most of the time. You don't really notice how much it changes your setup until you go back to something else. The CPU runs uncomfortably hot in performance mode. We're talking 90 to 100 degrees Celsius during gaming, which is higher than I'd like to see long term. It's not a deal breaker, but something I kept noticing every time I checked the temps. The glossy OLED screen looks incredible in controlled lighting, but in a bright room it reflects everything. And that can get distracting after a few hours. It's one of those small things that only becomes obvious after you've been using it for a while. There's also no biometric login, no fingerprint sensor, no IR camera for Windows Hello, which feels like an odd omission on a $3,400 laptop. It doesn't ruin the experience, but it's there. If you're the kind of person who prioritizes maximum performance and doesn't mind managing thermals with a laptop stand or cooling pad, this is absolutely worth it. The RTX 5080 at 175 watts delivers frame rates that rival or beat thinner competitors, and the OLED screen is among the best in the 16-inch gaming category for color accuracy and motion clarity. But if your days mostly spent moving between coffee shops or working in bright environments, the heat, weight, and glossy display may not be worth the price. I felt a quiet appreciation for how much power Lenovo managed to fit into this chassis without compromising build quality, even if it required me to think where and how I used it.